Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Few Connect Live for a Tuesday. It is officially 3 minutes to 12. If you're joining us for the first time, our kickoff time is actually 2 or 3 minutes past the hour. We normally let a few minutes for people to come from their previous meetings and to join us, with a large majority of our guests rolling in at about the 3 to 5 minute mark. For those joining us on the Zoom call today, fantastic to have you here. As a reminder, your microphones are muted by default, but please feel free to turn your cameras on. There is a chat facility within Zoom. Please feel free to use that. If you'd like to ask any questions, we will be sharing some links for people to be able to look at today within that. So please familiarize yourself with chat. For those coming to us live on YouTube Live or Facebook Live, there is a chat facility within both of those programs. Please feel free to add any comments or any questions there, and I'll be sure to get those over to our guests and our hosts today. Kicking off in about 5 minutes' time with Few Connect Live for your Tuesday. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Few Connect Live for your Tuesday morning, going live in about 3 minutes' time with today's guests. For those joining us for the first time, we normally wait until a couple of minutes past the hour for everyone to come from their previous meetings and to join us. For those on the Zoom call, there is a chat facility within Zoom. Someone's already used that. It is our fabulous founder, Judith Beck. Judith, it's great to see you as always on our live streams. For those coming to us new today, your microphones are muted by default. Please feel free to turn your cameras on, though. Today's all about connecting and sharing. You can see Heather Dawson there has already got a camera on, which is awesome. For those of you who are watching with us on Facebook or on YouTube Live, there's a chat facility within that platform. If you'd like to ask any questions, please feel free to do that within those platforms, and I'll make sure our guests get it. If you would like to ask our guests any questions today, there will absolutely be an opportunity to do that. We can turn your microphones on and questions can be asked. Few Connect Live, coming to you live in 2 minutes' time. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Few Connect Live for a Tuesday. It is our official start time, which is 2 minutes past 12. So a little bit of housekeeping before we kick things underway. For those on the Zoom call, your microphones are muted by default. Your cameras can be turned on though, so please do turn them on. Today is all about connecting and sharing. Love to see your smiling faces and your beautiful home offices. For those joining us on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, there's a chat facility within there. So if you'd like to ask any questions of our guests or make any comments, please feel free to do so within those platforms, and I will make sure that our guests get those. For those joining us on the Zoom call, there's a chat facility within there. Please feel free, comments, questions, use that chat facility within that platform. Alex Tullio, it is Tuesday, it is 2 minutes past 12, and here we are live streaming again to our audience. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. I think I only had 2 text messages from you, so that is an excellent thing to aspire to. For the rest of you, Cam's very passionate about his business, so we talk a lot on weekends. I had a good weekend, and I actually took my own advice just before and got up from the broadcast chair and went out into the glorious sunshine that is currently in Melbourne, which is beautiful. So I had 10 minutes of vitamin D. So I'm good, Cam. How about you?
Yeah, fantastic. I spent 12 hours on a fishing boat on the weekend, so I am feeling very relaxed and refreshed and ready to roll for the week ahead. Learning how to separate work life and home life a little bit as we continue to get used to this new norm. So
yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because and for all of you lovely people, for our members and regulars, welcome as always. It's so great to see you here nearly every day with us. And for those of you who are just joining this community, welcome to you as well. We love to have you. And you'll find that we talk about a lot of things on these live streams as well as everywhere else. And just that comment that you made there, Cam, about separation, you know, only in the last even couple of days, gosh, it's only Tuesday, but we've already had some member circles and we've been, you know, doing different things. And it's just really hit me again anew how many of you are really struggling with this feeling of isolation, with really trying to separate the work and the home, of working stupid hours, of really questioning where you're at. So this is what this community is for. The more we talk about it, the more we can support and assist, and we can help each other. And so it just really hit me this morning after hearing a few more member stories that this is this feeling of isolation and not feeling great is alive and well. So please join in and be part of this amazing community. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name's Alex. I'm the Executive Director of Few, and we work with amazing professional women in the financial and professional services arena. And of course, we have some beautiful men that are in our community, both our Few Good Men and of course joining our live stream as well. So welcome everyone. We have loads of great stuff that we bring to you 4 days a week. And as I do remind you, if you haven't shared this, please do share this. This is something that we jumped into first week of lockdown, which feels like it was an eon ago. And we did it because we wanted to keep showing up. We wanted to show leadership. We wanted to connect this community in this amazing industry. So please do share this. These live streams are free for all employees of our corporate partners for 12 months. So why wouldn't you? So share the link. And as I always say, you know, this is very much a community, and we are absolutely stronger together, and we have these incredible corporate partners. And as I say every day, thank you so much for being part of our community. We couldn't be here without you. So please do share that. Now, what have we got coming up? Well, thanks, Cam's just put the link in the chat as well. So Cam's been redesigning things behind the scenes. Actually, I know
keep you on your toes, Alex.
It's not Cam that's actually been redesigning things on the behind the scenes. It's his talented people behind him. But we do have an amazing array of guests coming up. And, you know, I've got to say, 8 weeks in, the fact that we have got so many amazing people still coming up, really wanting to be part of this community and just giving of their time it's just something that blows me away. It won't surprise you that I'm excited. I am excited a lot, and I'm excited again today. We have a brilliant speaker today, Andrew, who I will introduce properly in a moment. And we also have our special guest tomorrow, Susie Riddell and Matt Diebel from Social Ventures, and that's going to be super interesting conversation with them. And of course, Natasha Andy, who's going to be joining us on Thursday. Now, Natasha is a corporate advisor. She advises CEOs, boards, and we had a really interesting chat about how hard it is to make decisions when you don't have all the data and in times of uncertainty. But as leaders, of course, that's what we have to do. So don't miss that one with Tash. Fridays, of course, is Fitness Fridays. Don't miss it, people. Come on, I need you there. 8 o'clock on a Friday. And of course, this Friday, we have our masterclass with Ross Steven-Centis, who's going to be talking all about how to optimize our performance energetically, physically, and nutritionally. And we've got a new format for our masterclasses, Fridays at 12. So please join us, and that's thanks to your feedback. As you've told us, that's a really great time. Now, for all of our members, don't forget that we have a whole array of masterclasses for you to join whenever you like. We also record them all, so in our member-only portal, you can watch those over and over again if you so choose, along with our amazing live streams as well. And I think we've got well over 50 hours of content in there in our member portal, so make sure you avail yourself of that. For those of you who aren't yet members, don't just take my word for how fabulous this community is. We have so much amazing stuff going on. Now more than ever, we need to connect. And we do talk about our membership and our advocates as being such a critical part of the development of your career and your community. So if you'd like to find out more about what we do, please do join Judith and myself. Judith, I know you're there because you've already put something in the chat. Do you want to say good morning?
I'm here. Hello, everybody.
So Judith, our amazing founder, she and I do our circle events. This is confidential group mentoring. So you can certainly come along to one of those. We had an amazing one this morning. And of course, to our masterclasses. I'm doing a masterclass again tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So if you haven't joined us yet as a member, please do come along as our guest. All you have to do is click on the link that Cam has just put in the chat, and you can come and see what all the fuss is about with us. So without further ado, I would love to introduce today's speaker, Andrew Grant. Now, I'll, as I always do, go through the formal bio and then we'll get right into it with Andrew. So Andrew Grant and his partner, Dr Gaia Grant, from the University of Sydney Business School, have spent 30 years travelling the world to look at creativogenic cultures and why it is that some societies and companies seem to have raced ahead with innovation, whilst others appear to have been left behind. He's been featured in Reuters, CCTV, Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, and the Wall Street Journal. He's a founder and director of Tirian and author of the books The Innovation Race, How to Change a Culture to Change the Game, along with international bestseller Who Killed Creativity and How Can I Get It Back? He's worked globally with a number of large finance institutions, including Citibank, Deutsche Bank, Visa, BNP Paribas, Allianz, and many, many more. He is a TEDx speaker and has also presented at the APEC CEO Summit in Vietnam. Take that slide down, Cam. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
I tell you what, one of the things we can thank, I think, for this pandemic is that we have you here because you're not traveling around the globe at the moment, even though I know you're doing a lot virtually.
Well, that's right. The frequent flyer points are sitting there doing nothing, and hopefully they'll still be there when I get back. But it's definitely nice to do this out of our lounge room.
So it's so great, and I've got a heap that I want to ask you and get into. But first of all, I mean, how has this impacted you? Because given the breadth of what you do, and you and Gaia, you know, are international speakers and you do travel the globe, how have you both had to adjust over the last few weeks?
Well, I think you go through those stages of grief and quickly go through them very fast, and then realizing if we are supposedly the creativity and innovation experts, we better let that disruption work in our favor. So we have definitely started moving. Well, we already were moving things online, but now everything has the ability to go digital, which is what we're doing now. But we definitely want to be more than just talking heads on cameras, because that just gets a little bit too much. And besides, you can get that on YouTube for free. So we are creating what we're calling a facilitated online experience. So we do want to bring that facilitation experience into people's rooms, even if we can't be there face to face. And that's what we've always done. Our background is education and psychology, and we've always wanted to make sure that when people learn about particular topics such as creative thinking and innovation, that they actually learn it. They don't just get a one-way information dump. So what happened to us is we had to decide, well, now that we've gone digital, How can we still help people learn and discover about these important topics without it just being a talking head? So we have moved everything online, and I'm not going to make this an advertisement, but it's a good chance to go and have a look at what we're doing.
It's and you find that you've had to adapt how you actually deliver and facilitate and connect with people through the screen, or has it not been much different for you?
No, absolutely. As I said, as background in education, we've always realized it's more than just standing up and talking. You really have to create an experience, whether you're in the classroom or up on stage. It must be an experience. And therefore, to move online, we can't just lazily move everything across. We've still got to create that experience. And there's a whole lot of tools online that are wonderful to be able to do that. It's just a matter of getting our head around it. Of course, getting some of the younger people in to help makes a big difference to show us some of those tools, but they're all there, and it certainly is the ability to do it. Will it replace the classroom? Not sure. We'll see, but maybe there will be that blended learning, or what's been called as the flipped classroom, where people learn on their own, and then they come into these sessions to discuss and have them facilitated, rather than these sessions being, as I said, just an information dump.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we jump in, so in the intro that I was reading your bio, and oh gosh, you've done so much, but can you what is a creativogenic culture? I think that's a really good place to start, because until you and I had been chatting before this, I had not actually heard that term before.
Well, a creativogenic culture was originally coined by Richard Florida, who did research first in America and then globally about where were the pockets of creativity around, well, in America, where were the pockets of creativity? Silicon Valley didn't just happen because it happened to be in Silicon Valley. There were specific conditions that created the ability for the more, he calls it the creative class, to be attracted to work in these companies. And when those conditions are established, then creative people, which are a particular type of group, will move to that area physically, and now they'll move to it digitally. We've just seen Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey from Twitter and Facebook say that you don't have to come to work anymore. You can work from home. Well, that immediately attracts a lot of creative people that are not physically restricted to Silicon Valley. So this will be a complete disruption. But what a creativogenic culture is a culture where people are encouraged to be creative, encouraged to give out great ideas, and those ideas thrive and end up seeing in some of the innovations and disruptions that we've seen in the last 10 or 20 years. But you can also look at creativogenic cultures all the way back to the Renaissance period. Why was it that China invented the printing press, but it was the Europeans that actually made it commercial? That was a connection of all the creativogenic cultures coming together at that particular time. And there are conditions for those cultures to happen. And we believe that they need to happen in the workplace, in people's companies, as we'll go on to talk about later on. You can't just give people pizza, Coke, tell them to stay up on a Friday night, do a hackathon, and expect perfect results by Monday. You have to create the culture first.
But surely a beanbag to sit in makes all the difference as well.
Sorry, what was that?
I said, surely a beanbag to sit on makes all the difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Well.
I mean, it's a 1% start, isn't it? That we're saying we're going to get out of our cubicles and we're not going to be focused purely on staring at screens and KPIs, and we're going to give you the chance. I mean, Google has been, pegged as one of the most innovative companies in the world. There's a reason for it. It's the culture they create, the things that they do that make it like it. I know people in banking say to me, don't talk about Apple and Google, we're in finance, but you can still take some of the cultural elements out of those companies to see what makes them creative.
Oh, look, absolutely, and I think that that is a good segue, because we are a bit tongue-in-cheek. I mean, you know that our amazing community here we are financial services, and we're much maligned about not being creative folk. We're bankers and all sorts of things. So let's dispel any myths around this, shall we? When we're talking about creativity in business, and you've already just touched on this. I mean, I think it's absolutely relevant for financial services, like any organisation that really does want to innovate and tap into talent and progress. But can we talk a bit about maybe we need to dispel some myths for our community around creativity in financial services?
Well, that's right. The first myth is creative thing is not, what we're talking about anyway, it's not about artistic, musical or drama skills. It really is about looking at problems, looking at undefinable problems. They're called wicked problems, which is exactly where we're at right now. Problems that don't necessarily have a linear mathematical solution, and trying to find different ways to look at those problems and asking the right questions and giving yourself the ability to then look throughout the whole canvas to see where those solutions might be, rather than just jumping straight into the left brain and going into those logical problems. And ironically, when we started offering creative thinking sessions 25 years ago, banks, and let's start with perhaps one that was not known for, Goldman Sachs was our first client in the financial industry. And banks have actually been our biggest customers and financial institutions when it comes to this topic. So it seems like we've hit on something, because I think for a long time before that, people just thought that you would go to a creativity workshop and stare at clouds and sit on beanbag chairs. And people might think, well, that was fun, but it was a waste of time. But now when you actually can see real results and products coming to market that work and come to market faster, can you start to realize that?
Oh, absolutely. So, and again, you've just touched on so many things here, because, as you're talking as well, I'm thinking, well, this has such an impact on the type of talent that organizations are looking for. It has an impact on the culture. It has, we were joking before about it's not just Coke and the bean bags, but it's the underlying, you've got to have the right remuneration structures and teach critical, there's so much to this. So given where we are now, and obviously much is being talked about, and I think you said earlier, Andrew, we've all been through these cycles and continue to go through the cycles in different ways. We know that we're kind of coming out of where we are now, but we don't know where that's going to land or what that even looks like, which is probably part scary, but part super exciting as well. Why is creative thinking, do you think, more relevant than ever before for business?
Well, that's a good point. As I said, when we started this 20 odd years ago, we would often be running a conference with one of our clients that like our educational approach, like the fact that we can engage people, and they'd come and say to us, we've done sales skills, we've done presentation skills, what can we do this year? And creativity and critical thinking was sort of shoved in as an afterthought, a bit of a filler, which really annoyed us. Until we could actually show people the value of it. And then they go, wow, I didn't realize that I could open all that up. But look, more recently, and thank goodness for us, because it's helped obviously promote our cause, but IBM undertook the biggest CEO survey they'd ever done to 1,500 CEOs globally, and asked them what was the most critical skill that their senior leadership teams will need in employment, along with the Davos World Economic Forum. Both asked the same question. And it's not surprisingly that creative thinking and critical thinking have become the top skills needed for people. And why is that? That's because AI is going to take over most other skills. We don't need to learn things anymore. We need to learn how to learn. We don't need to solve problems. AI, Google, maths will do that for us. The algorithms will do that for us. What AI can't do is connect two things that are totally unrelated to come up with something better. And that's what we as humans is going to be one of our only skills left. So therefore, creative thinking, and I'll say creative, I mean critical thinking as well, because there's no point having great ideas if you can't make them work. And obviously the buzzword at the moment is innovation, but for the sake of this 30 minutes, I'm going to lump them all together. Someone will pop in the chat that I'm academically wrong. I'll take you up on that one later on. Right now, let's just put it all together. It's a concept of thinking and looking for solutions where other people aren't going to look for them, and having the mindset both internally in your mind and the cultural environment around you with the people you hang out with and the workplace that allows you to do that is what is needed most importantly right now.
Again, there's so much to that, isn't there? I mean, when you're talking about this, I'm sure that probably there are people in our community, not just in our community, but on this chat that are thinking, well, yeah, I get it, but I'm not a creative type. So how can we learn these skills? I mean, can anyone with the right tools and environment and support, can anyone learn how to be a more creative thinker, a more critical thinker as well?
Well, yes and no. Unfortunately, when we were kindergarten kids, 98% of us scored high on creative thinking and divergent thinking. And now that we've become adults, that's come down to 2%. So if there's 100 people on the line right now, 2 of you probably don't need to listen, the other 98 do. So perhaps you could first ask that question, what happened to us as children as we became adults? I won't answer that now because I'm just going to let you sit on that ambiguity for a while. Look, some people are going to be, as I said, naturally more exploring, and others are going to be naturally more preserving, which is the research that my partner's done on her PhD. And therefore, the people that are more exploring are going to be the ones that are going to be searching and curious and looking for those creative solutions. And those that are going to be more preserving are going to be the ones that are going to naturally be more conscientious. But therefore, it's really important that we work as a team, because you do need the people that are going to explore out and do the big picture stuff, but you also need the preserving people that are going to be the critical thinkers, that are going to be the ones that are going to actually make sure it happens. So someone might say, look, I'm not naturally creative. I don't wake up in the morning and stare at clouds and see shapes in them. That's fine. I'm not expecting that in the finance industry. But we do need to be able to take those new ideas and make them work. So therefore, even if you don't think you're a creative person, you can definitely jump in on the critical stage. But for goodness sake, let the creative people have their ideas first before you kill them all off. Because McKinsey have shown it's only the last 30% of research, of brainstorming, that the great ideas come through. So if you kill them off at the beginning because you're the critical thinking, you've spoiled the whole process.
So we're talking about killing creativity, which is a perfect segue to my next question. So I'm really curious about your book, Who Killed Creativity? One, because you've written a couple of books. So I'd love to get into the creative process of writing a book. But what led you to writing that book?
Well, again, putting a submission into Wiley globally is like putting in a submission for a huge tender. You've got to write a 30-page document to explain why your book's important. And we realized that there were, as I said, after teaching design thinking and creative thinking for many, many years, a lot to financial institutions, many of the participants would turn up and say, that's not my responsibility. That's the creative department, of which we don't have one. And so an enthusiastic evangelical boss would send their team off and say, you've got to be more critical thinking, or a forward-thinking boss, because we now know how important this is. We were talking 20 odd years ago. And we'd be sitting in the seminar explaining the stages of design thinking and showing how important they are, only to have people sit there with their eyes rolling in contempt saying, that's not my responsibility. I have too much fear. I don't care. My boss is a control freak, so what's the point? I'm too narrow-minded. I've just got a very focused job. And we started to think there's absolutely no point teaching the creative thinking and critical thinking skills if we don't address these issues that are coming into people's lives. So we collected all these excuses and then sat down with a neuroscientist and a psychologist to ask, what does go on in people's minds when they're afraid? And he pointed out and took us through the whole process of the dorsal dive, the fight, flight, or freeze, the back of the brain, the front of the brain, everything that's going on. If we just took the example of fear, if people are too afraid to come up with a creative idea because their boss, who is a micromanaging control freak, shuts it down all the time, well then what's going to happen? Who's going to come up with the idea? So we thought we really need to address from a neuroscience perspective, from a psychological perspective, and then a cultural environmental perspective, why creativity is killed. Now, we weren't going to write an academic textbook because it was on creativity. So let's call it Who Killed Creativity and How to Get It Back. Let's theme it around a CSI crime theme, and let's play it like a Cluedo game. And that way people will remember it. We've still got clients, calling us 10, 15 years later saying, I remember playing that game where we really was a disguised diagnostic tool to help people understand what are the blockers, because there was no point in going on and teaching people the skills of creative and design thinking if we didn't get rid of the things that were blocking them in the first place. Once we can deal with the things that block or kill their creativity, then they can read as many books as they like, and away they go. But if you've got a culture that shuts down creativity every time you come up with a great idea, well, first of all, you're not going to come up with a creative idea. And secondly, you will go somewhere else. You will go to a company that attracts you. And there is such a war for talent at the moment, particularly as we get older and older and more people come through that are creative. There's a war for talent, and those creative people are going to get siphoned off into the people that accept their ideas, not the ones that shut it down.
100%. I mean, this is resonating, and it's actually making me laugh a bit because I don't know what screen you're on, Andrew, but so I always have it on the Brady Bunch, the gallery view, so I can see all these gorgeous people. Turn more videos on, people. And I'm seeing all these nods, especially when you're talking about micromanaging bosses that shut ideas down. So a lot of our crew here are they're members of a team, and they're also leaders of teams. So when I know this is a lot deeper answer, but when as leaders with teams, if we've got and thank you for putting your videos on, love you guys. So when we're sitting here going, okay, well, we've got a team and we want to be more creative, and I want to foster this more. How can a leader of a team start to build this culture? Because I think, you and I and all of us would have heard there's plenty of leaders out there that say, oh, it's okay to fail fast. And yet the minute someone puts their head over the parapet, it gets knocked down. So how as leaders can we start? What are the first steps to starting to really build a culture where creativity can blossom?
Well, let me tell you one of the stories that originally, got us thinking about the book is we were engaged by a senior leader, and just one below a CEO, to run a 1-year creative intervention for his teams. And we were very excited. It's great to get a 1-year contract. And each intervention was 3 days long. So the first team we had was about 20 people, and we took and he came in to introduce the session, and then he condescendingly almost patted them on the head and said, "Enjoy your training." Gosh, I hate the word training. "Enjoy your training. I'll come back at the end of the 3 days." Well, the first thing was this was his team and he wasn't there. He condescendingly told us, "You're going to get something that I already have and I don't need to be there." We're not selling training, we're selling business facilitation. So I was a bit pissed off with that. And so was the team. You could see that they were really disappointed that he wasn't going to be there. Anyway, thank goodness he wasn't, because he was the micromanager, which we'll see in a minute. So what happened is we spent 3 days going through the whole diagnostic of what blocks the creativity and then building it back up and giving people the 7 steps of design thinking and how to solve problems. We worked them through a couple of case studies, and then we finally got them to take their own problem that they were dealing with. They came up with many, which was great. And we had hundreds of ideas all around the room, because that's part of the ideation, which we know that goes through. Most of them probably would fail. We know that. We talked about that. Everyone discussed it. And finally, the boss comes back on the last day for the presentation. And how often does this happen? He sits in the middle of the room. His body language was already bad when he walked in, because he was probably freaked out by all the stupid ideas around the room. And let's face it, most of them were stupid, but that's part of the process. That's the permission we gave people, because you don't get to the good ideas until you go through the stupid ones. But hey, he wasn't there. Sits in the middle of the room, folds his arm. The first team gets up to present. They're really, really excited. And at the end of the presentation, he basically, showed no enthusiasm. You could tell he was hating the whole process, again, because he didn't know what was going on. By the time the last team got up, they were all pushing each other, saying, "No, you do it, you do it. I don't want to do it." No one wanted to stand up in front of the boss and present. The very guy that employed us to make creativity happen in his company killed it within about an hour. And I just find that bizarre. So if you're a leader, be with your team. Don't see it as training. Do your training online. Do the facilitation as a team. Explore concepts together and go through the process and the journey together, and encourage them. And if you're going to say no, which may be your job as a leader, because not every idea should go through, that's for sure, say it in a way that encourages them to come back a second time and a third time. Don't say it in such a negative way that they go, "Well, screw you, I'm never coming back again. I'm not going to put up with this humiliation. I won't. If I do have another creative idea, that might be the next big thing. I'm sure I'm not going to tell you about it. And I'll be looking in LinkedIn for a new job, because I want a boss that appreciates my creative side." So it starts with asking yourself, who killed creativity? Where is it killed? And what weapon killed it? Let's go down that creativity path. It makes it more fun than looking at the academic side of it.
I love that side, but I mean, you're right. And again, I can see everyone nodding, because I think we can all resonate with this story that you've just recounted. And I think you sometimes forget, when you're in a position of leadership, just the impact and the influence we have, because what you've just described then, it's actions and words not matching up, but it's saying you've got permission, but you don't really. And this is where, as you said before, Andrew, you see a lot of even leaders that I would speak to say, "God, I wish we had more entrepreneurial spirit in here." And you think, well, one, let's dig into what you mean by that, but the characteristics that generally come out are, well, we want, problem solvers and more creativity and people who think like business owners, like all these things that can so easily just be stifled. And as you say, and it's great that you've said it, because we talk a lot here about there is a war for talent. There are jobs and opportunities out there for talented people. We've got a question here from Kylie, which is related. And Kylie, thanks for asking. So you've asked, what are some of the common blocks that you find with managers in their mindset in terms of their creativity?
Well, as I said, we collected years and years of excuses and blocks, and we came up with 7, and they were control, because control shuts down the default network of the brain and immediately pushes you to the back of the brain, which is the primitive brain. Fear does the same thing. It puts you into the fight, flight, or freeze frame. Apathy is well, actually, if it goes through a process, it then goes from control to fear to then a narrow-minded, where we think, well, I'm just going to shut things off. Then it goes into the apathy, and then finally it moves into a pessimism stage, which I think is really dangerous, because then you just feel, well, who cares? Why should I even bother trying? And I think, as you said, I've worked with some very large financial companies where I've seen over a long period of time a really, really good boss come in, and he had the open door mindset, and people would love to come and talk. And he did talk about, this being a family, and he meant it. He did a lot of development, and then he got promoted. And a German auditor turned up. Now, I'm not being rude to German auditors, but it certainly changed the style of the management feeling of it. And all of a sudden, the office door was closed. People didn't want to go near his office in case they got called in. They were afraid. The control shut things down. Then they became really narrow-minded, and then they became apathetic, and then finally it was a pessimism of who cares, all along with the lines of insulation, where we just read what we want to read and hear what we want to hear. So look, I don't want to advertise the book or the web podcast or anything else, but we've identified 7 killers or 7 blockers, and we've gone into really big detail of why they are and what you can do to get rid of them.
Yeah, and we're very interested in those. I think we've talked about all the things where it hasn't worked. Let's go to the positive. You must have had some amazing success stories where you've gone into organisations, and I know you work with some pretty big names where they have taken it on board, and there's the opposite of what you've just described. Have you got some success stories that you can share?
Sure. Well, again, I'm not going to say who, but we'll take one of Australia's biggest banks before one of the Royal Commissions, and I've lost count how many Royal Commissions there are on banking at the moment. I know Jay is researching the current Haynes Royal Commission, my partner on ethical behaviour within banks, so stand by for that one to come out. But this was one of the previous Royal Commissions, and this bank knew it was coming. And so very, very proactive CEO and COO, we all got together for a couple of days, just a small group of about, first of all, we started with the small team of 10, the top 10, and then we moved that into 60, where each of the 10 managed a table, and then that moved into 600. And the goal was to say, we know this Royal Commission's coming, we know these issues are going to really tighten our structures. Kind of ironic, we're talking about creativity at the same breath that we're talking about processes being tightened. We know these processes need to be tightened. What can we do to get ahead of it? And they weren't doing it from a corrupt perspective, because the cynical side of us will say, well, yeah, they were just trying to be like the GFC. They were genuinely trying to look at creative solutions to solve what they knew was going to come. So when it happened, they were prepared and ready for it. And it's all about getting things out first. Look, money's money. Unless it's the GFC, you can't play with it. You can't make $1 $1. There's not a lot financial institutions can do to compete from a money. It's a commodity. What the financial institutions that are going to be successful, the ones that are going to come up with the best products, the best packages, the best value add, and everyone's playing leapfrog. We're all jumping on ahead of each other. What we need is the creative companies, the ones that will see it coming first, because they've got that foresight, that ability to see what's happening, and then look for solutions and then try them and test them so they work, because that's a very important part of the implementation stage. Get them out to market quicker than their competitors. And that's what this bank did. And it was really exciting to see oh, wow, look what we can do, look what we can do. And then when the Royal Commission came out, they were onto it, they were ready, and off they went.
Yeah, it's interesting, you're right, because you wouldn't, I think, naturally think of Royal Commission, banking, processes, regulation, and creativity.
Right. Yes, it's kind of ironic. And I still find it funny that banks are our biggest, I mean, I'm not a banker, but banks have been our biggest customers for the last 20 years. And yet they desperately don't want that process. They want someone to challenge them, and that's what we like to do. We want to challenge their thinking. But that's absolutely right. Ironically, I would be expecting some of the more Silicon Valleys to be engaging this. But really, when they see the value of what design thinking can do, and what this process can do, because maybe people get into banking probably because they're more left brain. They didn't wake up and say, I love staring at clouds, I'm going to get into logarithmic banking. So maybe by offering people that are more left brain a process to be creative, and there's an ambiguity within itself, probably appeals to them than just saying, let's sing songs and play guitar and stare at clouds.
Is there a lot of cloud staring in your facilitations?
None.
I'm disappointed. You've built us up to that now. But
no, we won't do cloud staring. We might do the odd Rorschach test, or if you have a look at my TED talk, what my kids saw in a biscuit story. Well, maybe I should tell that story because it's kind of a funny one. So one of my first jobs was to give a keynote to banking 300 bankers in Singapore over dinner, which is a very dangerous combination. Banking, Singapore, dinner, alcohol, and creativity just didn't go together in my mind. And here I was thinking I really need a creative opening. And this was, you know, this is sort of opens the chapter of the book because it was such a profound story. And we picked up my son from school when he was 6 years old, and he's in the back of the car and he's taking bites out of his biscuits. He's going, look, Dad, a mountain bike, or look, another bite. Look, Dad, a mountain with snow on, or look, Dad, a swimming pool. And he sees all these shapes in the biscuit. And I'm turning around saying, not now, son, I'm trying to be creative, because I was trying to think of a creative talk. And then it occurred to me, here was he at 6 years old, just rattling off hundreds of things, well, not hundreds, but lots of things he could see in a biscuit. He could make those connections, and that's what creative thinking is about. Well, the irony was I didn't have an opening keynote wow story for the talk, so I brought 6 bankers up on stage, asked them to take a bite out of their biscuit, and asked what they could see. And as I walked towards the first guy, I could tell he was gone pale with fear and all the killers that were there. And I said, what can you see in the biscuit? And he mumbled into the microphone, a biscuit. That's all he could see. And I rest my case. That's the challenge that we have as adults. And as I said, it might have been peculiar to Singaporean banking and adults. I don't know. But the irony of it is we don't make those connections that kids do. And so we need to go back and discover how can we see things that other people can't see before other people can see them. And all great innovations come from connecting things together. They're not necessarily creating new things. It's about connecting things together.
Absolutely. I love that story. So, what does happen from when we are young kids where, you know, we've got none of this negativity, where you know, we are seeing creativity everywhere? What happens? I mean, you gave us the teaser early on in our chat.
I don't like to answer that because I like people to think about it. You know what? I'm not going to answer that one. I do know the answer, but I don't want to feed it to people. I want each person on this line to, if you've got kids, go and ask them. But start to reflect on the journey that you've had between childhood and adulthood of what are the things that have happened in your life or in a general life of an adult that shut down and block our creativity. Is it the fear of not trying new things? Is it the fear of failure? Is it the control? Is it the apathy? Is it narrow-mindedness? Is it insulation? Is it pressure? Again, we try and ask people for a poll, and it would be nice to have done this now. We try and ask, maybe you can put in a poll. Okay, put it in the chat. Jaya Sajensing, put in the chat, what are the things that kill our creativity? We like to put these 7 things up and then ask them, what are the big ones for you? And the pressure comes up as the big one. We know that to be creative, you need time. If we're checking our devices hundreds of times a day and we don't get any more than 2 or 3 minutes between being interrupted, how on earth are we going to have that time to stare at the clouds and be creative? So why don't you guys pop in the chat? What's stopping, let's hear from the participants. What's stopping them from being creative? Why were 98% of you online creative as children and now you're not? Let's find out what they've got to say. Because I like us to all think about that. That's the killer question. And therefore, if we did have that creativity as children, can we get it back? Can we rediscover it? So we've got rules and expectations, we've got responsibility, we've got the pandemic has allowed us to be introspective again and playful again. Well, thank goodness. Kylie said that she can go out and play stuck in our house. That's fantastic. Confidence, that's right. We lack the confidence that kids have. Too busy with the job stuff. That's right. We're not giving ourselves the break to be creative. We know that kids have more time available. We know they do have time to just stop and think and stare off into the oh, I keep using the clouds again, but you know, we just don't get that time. And it's going to get harder and harder as our devices continue to interrupt us. Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, I can never pronounce his name, who wrote the book Flow, said it takes 25 minutes to get back into an active state of flow once you get disrupted. But if you're being disrupted every 24 minutes and 59 seconds, you'll find you can go days, weeks, months, years without ever having a creative idea because you never gave yourself the permission to actually be creative. What else have we got? Roller skating again. Good on you, Kylie.
That's great, Kylie.
Struggling with the jungle. So look, I hope, as I said, this is only a short, I wish we had more time together. And so again, as an educationalist, I'm trying to think, what can we achieve in this just short, almost monologue? And that is, I hope I've given you more questions and answers today and given you the chance to really think about, why do I need it? Why did I have it? Why are my kids that are running around the house right now while you're staring into a screen being creative? Hopefully they're not staring into screens as well. And then why is it important for my job? Will it future-proof me for my job, even in finance? Because I didn't put my hand up to be creative. And now I'm in finance discovering that this guy out there is telling me I need to be creative.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's right. I think we need to let go of why be creative in finance. It's just as humans and as business people, we can produce more great work if we allow ourselves the time. You know, as always, gang, thanks for sharing. There's some really great stuff there. Oh yes, Bryony, the micromanager control freak. Yep, getting buy-in. I think there's, because we talk a lot here, Andrew, you know, we've been doing these for some weeks now, and it's interesting, regardless of who we have on as a guest, there'll be some theme that will come in either around success has to look a certain way, or this kind of this theme of conforming to, you know, well, it's kind of this judgment and that's not what I'm expected to do in this culture or this role, or this is not, you know, what senior people do, or it's fluffy. And I think it's interesting, you know, with what you're saying and also some of the comments in the chat, there's quite a few there around time, exactly as you're saying, you know, getting into flow and not being in flow. And I just think I love that you're posing so many questions for us, because this is the future of work and of business. We need to tap into this, and just having back-to-back meetings and being completely overcommitted is not the answer. We know that, but we're still doing it.
Well, here's an interesting question for all the people out there is working from home more likely or less likely to make you creative? Because, you know, we've just heard in the chat that when you go to work, you're pretty much working 12 hours a day. You bank yourself up with meeting after meeting. You don't get time to breathe. Most of you have work at, eat lunch at your desk. You don't give yourself that breakaway principle, the chance to get up and walk around. So my question is, we all have probably gained an hour a day in terms of transport to work. So is being at home the opportunity now, because this has been a reset in our lives, our whole lives have changed over the last 8 weeks. My question now is, have they changed for the better in the terms that I'm now rediscovering my creativity? I think Kylie wrote one of the answers that she's taken up roller skating. What are you doing with that extra hour? Or do you finding yourself now working 18 hours a day rather than 8 hours a day? And are you being more creative? So it depends on the distractions, what you get from home. Working in projects, they don't allow time to reflect, that's right. So I'm really keen to know, with this, the biggest reset we'll probably ever have in our lifetime, is this the chance to become more creative, or is it killing our creativity even more? Okay, we've got Byron saying change for the better, the flexibility and time to think and reflect. So you've all gained an extra hour in your day. How are you using that? Is it to be more creative? What else have we got? I think we talked about boundaries, trust, relationships, more creativity will occur. So interesting. Well, anyway, but just think about that. What are you doing with that extra hour a day? And are you going to be more creative as a chance you've had a complete reset? All the bad habits that you've had, all the things that have happened. Many companies are having a reset by having to reduce their staff. It's a real chance to be a huge disruption. You asked me at the beginning of the session, what are we doing? As I said, we're moving a lot of our stuff online, and it's kind of nice not traveling for a while. So we're all having these big resets. Are we going to use those resets to creatively come up with better ways of working, or are we just going to use those resets just to keep the old habits going?
It's such a great question. At the end of our very short session, Andrew, so Andrew's also going to be one of our amazing speakers at our conference when we come out of postponement, like all of us. So, but it's been so brilliant. So can you tell us again your book, if people would like to know more about the 7 blockers and all the excuses that we use?
Well, we've got 2 books. The one is called, an easy one to remember, Who Killed Creativity and How to Get It Back. It's Amazon, Kindle and ebook. But we've just launched a new version called Who Killed Your Creativity by Wisdom Destinations. And it's a hybrid. This is a really creative idea. It came out of America, a hybrid of a podcast, interview, book and leader's guide. So it's the chance for you to sit down and hear the book in third person. So it's called Who Killed Your Creativity. Hear the book in third person and then reflect on the life of a particular person at work and go through the whole leader's guide. So it's a little bit more structured than the book where we worked with the neuroscientists. So either, as I said, there's lots of opportunities to do that. If you've got no money and got only an 18-minute attention span, the TED Talk's always there. And then the second book we wrote is called The Innovation Race, How to Change a Culture to Change Innovation. And that's when we started looking at cultures around the world and countries around the world going back 3,000 years. And that's been part of my partner's PhD research. So because she's a female, I feel a bit of a the wrong person that should be up here. I'm very privileged to be invited to the FEW, and I think W stands for women. So maybe we will, maybe we will get Dr. Gaia back next time.
Oh, yes,
and
we
perhaps
love that.
she could talk about her innovation research study on what she's discovered, and maybe she'll have some great advice for female leaders as well.
Well, that sounds like a date, but you've been amazing. Thank you. And I think to everyone, as always, what a great question to ask ourselves for our own creativity, but what could you be doing for your teams to actually foster this in them? Like, what's the one thing, that we've taken from this chat, and just this insight from Andrew about, wow, if I killed creativity in my team unknowingly, what have I done? I just think that's a great starting point.
Well, look, I've got to jump in here. This is so important, because whenever we talk about who killed creativity, I bet you every single one of you are thinking about your boss, which is so easy to do. And let's hope your boss is not here, and he's thinking about his boss, or her. Maybe I'll use he, because it often is. But I think it's time we just, stopped now and thought about, well, what about me? What am I doing? Am I killing creativity myself? I mean, look, if your boss is not here, next time get him or her to come on the webinar. But right now, let's think about what we can do, not what I wish my boss could do it, which is what is always the feedback we get. So do I. But right now, let's talk about what can we do differently? What can we do to rewire our brain, to not let people kill our creativity? It might be next time you go to the finance department. I talked about who killed creativity with what weapon and where. It may be that you go to the finance department and they cut you down with a lacerating legacy or the weapon of bludgeoning bias. Prepare yourself for that. Don't come away feeling upset. Say, hey, I'm going to finance. Of course they're going to rip me to bits, but I'm not going to let it kill my creativity. Do I want finance to come on this course? Yes, but right now I'm going to finance. Let's see what I can do to make sure that I can walk out of that room and not have my creativity killed.
And I know there's a lot of you finance people here that think, hang on, I'm a bit creative. I just haven't let it come out yet.
Well, we don't want that to be the GFC. That's the danger, because we are looking what's even still coming out of America. So let's be very careful what we mean by creative thinking in finance.
Not being creative with the numbers.
Yes, it's.
Should we have had the disclaimer at the start?
Yes, we should have.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been really, really amazing. We could talk for a lot longer, but we've run out of time. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Andrew, for an amazing session. And
please keep in touch.
Yes, absolutely. Keep in touch. We definitely know where to find you. And also, before we go, I think we've got Ross, who might be on the line quickly to give us another bit more a sneak preview of the masterclass at 12 on Friday. Ross, are you with us? There you are.
Morning, Alex.
So why would we want to come to your masterclass on Friday about how to optimize our performance?
Because it's going to be fantastic. I think I only came online just a moment ago, so I didn't get to hear all of Andrew's talk, but probably following on from what Andrew was talking about, like, some of us we've got time in places where we wouldn't maybe normally have time. And what I've found in the work that I do with my clients is it's helping them build routines and habits that allows them to support their professional growth, but also helps build their foundation of health. Because ultimately, without that foundation of health, it doesn't matter how our business is going, or it doesn't matter what else is going on in our life, even if we're parents and we're managing that process as well of homeschooling and all of that business. If we don't have that core health ourselves, then it's pretty hard to achieve anything at that optimal level. We use optimum a lot in the wording and in how we train our clients, because what I've seen, and I've seen it through my time as a soldier, I've seen it as an athlete, and I see it now as a health and performance coach, is that so many of us live at this level. And we believe this is our capability, this is our genetic potential that we're at, or maybe we're not even thinking around those words, but we're at this level. And it's only when someone, or we do something that, maybe we take, something out of our diet that was actually messing with our stomachs, and we go, oh my gosh, my digestion's better and I've got more energy. But I didn't realize I could have more energy, because I thought I had all the energy that was possible to harness. So we talk about sort of building up the most solid foundations possible. Just like when we build a house, we want to have the most solid foundations so that we're able to live in a house that's, going to stay structured, and we're not going to get cracks in the walls and all of that. So what we'll be talking about on Friday is we're going to be going through a lot of the really, I would say they're basic things. They're basic things that are often skipped over. So we're not going to skip over them. We're going to spend an hour talking about what it means to actually be hydrated, what it means to actually eat a diet that's optimal for you and your unique body and mind, what it means to exercise effectively, to have the right mindset, and how to put in mindfulness practices in order to reach your genetic potential to just be able to live the best possible life you can.
Mate, that sounds amazing. And I think what a great time. We're talking about reflection. We're talking about we're exhausted. What do we want to change? I think now is a perfect time to do it. So thank you so much, Ross. I'm really looking forward to Friday. So for our members, of course, you know how to register. You just need to go to our website. You just need to go there, register, and you are in. For those of you who are yet to become a member of this amazing community, don't forget, you can come and check it out on us as our guest. All you need to do is click on the link that Cam has just put in the chat as well. So remember, register for Ross's session at 12 on Friday, and otherwise come as our guest to check out a bit more about what we do at FEW. Thank you again, Andrew. Thank you everyone for spending an hour with us. We'll see you tomorrow at 12 for another awesome session. Have a good one.
Thank you.